right, welcome back to Countdown to my first Ironman. 6 weeks to go. October 22nd, 2023 in Sacramento. Full Ironman. 6 weeks away. I'm very, very excited. Today is going to be my longest ride. It's going to be 100 miles. Last week I did 90 miles in 5 hours and 15 minutes because I was pushing it. This week I'm going to ride the 100 miles in a slower pace. I'm not going to go race pace. I'm just going to go maybe medium pace. I don't need to run after, so I guess I really can go hard. But you know what? Let's just go hard. Let's go race pace. And I'm shooting for less than 6 hours, okay? Now, what makes these rides a little difficult is I'm going through the roads, I'm going through the streets, and there's a lot of stop signs or lights, traffic lights. So there's a lot of stop and go. So I know that if I was in a straightaway or, during race day, it will be a lot different time-wise. But 6 hours is going to be the goal. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just do my normal route. I'm going to go 50 miles one direction, and then I'm just going to reverse it and go 50 miles back. 6 hours, that's the goal. What I decided to do is next week is a 90 miler, and then the week after is gonna have to be a 100 miler. What I'm gonna do is, because I'm gonna be in Tahoe, I'm going, instead of doing the 100 miles, I'm gonna cycle around the perimeter of the lake, which is 72 miles, although not 100, but the elevation should compensate for the 30 miles missing, and there's gonna be a lot of climb as well. So the climb and the elevation will challenge me enough to comfortably say, I'm not doing the 100 miles, but I'm doing something equally challenged, if not more challenging. So that's what I'm gonna do. I've decided, because I will be there, and I didn't realize it was a bucket list item thing for a lot of cyclists. A lot of people have been, posting videos on YouTube and stuff. So I'm definitely gonna take advantage of the cycling around and videotaping, so that way I can knock off a practice and a bucket list item at the same time. So that will be in a couple weeks. But for now, I'm working on 100 miles. Now, I have purchased something new for my bike, and one of the things I noticed is I didn't have enough storage space. I have this storage here, but that's for my tube and things to change the tire. And what I needed a bag so I can carry my goos and or food that I want to munch on. I also have, pockets in the back of my suit, my tri-suit. But while I'm in my aero position, the last thing I want to do is reach behind my back, grab what I need to grab, and then consume what I need to consume. Not a difficult thing, but I just decided that I don't like it. So, and, the sun's on my back, whatever's on my back, I don't want it to not melt, but I'd rather carry a bag. So I have a bag, all my stuff is inside it. I'm ready to go. 100 miles, here we come. 6 hours, here I come. And any final words? No final words. Just got to be careful on the streets. Last week, since I had my fastest time, I had landmarks that I have chosen for, like where I was for the hour mark, where I was for the second mark. Last week was at 90 miles. Where was it, the 45th mile mark? So I will have something to gauge to see how far I am from last week's really good, not cycle. All right, we will see you in 6 hours. All right, welcome back to the video series. Now, I am 1 day removed, or not even a whole day, just the night removed from my long ride yesterday. I did 100 miles. That is the most I've ever done, and I am not going to be doing that until race day. In 2 weeks, I am scheduled to do another 100 miler, but I will be in Lake Tahoe, and I've decided to do the Tahoe Rim. Even though it's not 100 miles, it is 72 miles, but high altitude and a lot of climbing. So I'm gonna exchange distance for intensity. That's gonna be in 2 weeks, but let's discuss yesterday. So yesterday, there was a couple things that I've noticed, and let me give you some context first. So I've been complaining about my foot really being like a numb feeling in here. Although some of it is the tightness of the shoe, right? So I got a little bit of a wider shoe, but I was still feeling it here. Not as much as I was feeling it with the last pair of shoes, but definitely feeling it. So when I went to the cycling store or the bike store earlier this week, I had to purchase some things. And as I was there, I spoke to the people and said, hey, I'm having this issue. And what his suggestion was, hey, bring in your bike and your shoes and we will put a lift on your foot. It all made sense. So as soon as he said it, my brain already started working, and I was like, wait a minute, does that mean I'm applying pressure on my outside of my foot, which is probably bringing my knee out, which then creates more of a sail, more resistance to the wind. I'm not aerodynamic. And he said, yeah, we're gonna have to put a lift, so that way once your foot is kind of tilted from the lift, now more of the drive will be from the ball of the foot or the, more of the big toe. Made total sense. So the whole ride yesterday, all I did was I focused on driving off of the ball of the foot versus the pinky. And I realized as I was riding, I'm like, oh, I do feel my foot driving off the pinky. No different than my tennis shoes, right? Remember my tennis shoes, when we looked at the wear and tear was on the side. So there's a consistency of my foot supinating. Okay, so as I was conscious yesterday and riding my bike, putting my big toe down, I had less numbing. So that was definitely a huge eye-opener, and I'm really, really, really appreciative of the knowledge of the staff at the bicycle store, the Bicycle Outfitter in Los Altos. Amazing place. They have answered all my questions, all of my needs. They fulfilled everything. So with their knowledge and my experience learning, I'm now picking up these little small things that, I would assume that people who get trainers or professional riders to teach them and train them, that this is the stuff that they will be teaching them. And because I did not get a trainer, because I thought the cycling would be a little bit easier than normal, I'm now learning these via trial and error, which is fine. I don't mind it, but again, yeah. I did say I wasn't gonna get a trainer for cycling, but I never did. But anyways, that's nor here or there. So big learning. Yesterday, again, I did 100 miles, and it took me about 6 hours and 15 seconds, I believe. I'll have the info here. And I was a lot slower than I was last week. Last week I averaged 17.1. This week, or yesterday, I averaged 16.4, I believe. And the biggest difference was there was a detour in my route, which threw me off, which then took me to a whole new area. And because I didn't know where I was going, the signs weren't as consistent as possible. There was a lot of slowing down because I'm looking at where I'm going, and again, no excuse. It's just these are the things that slow me down. Then I realized I was about 15 minutes slow. So throughout the whole ride, as I have my markers, I realized I was 15 minutes slow because of the detour, and that total time of 6 hours and 15 minutes, that 15 minutes added, if I subtracted it, I would have finished it in 6 hours, which is, again, my goal is 5.5 hours. Again, I'm still dealing with lights and stuff. So 6 hours it would have been pleasing to me, but 6 hours 15, I'll take it. And again, the biggest difference between where I'm practicing and the race will be the race has no stops, right? No lights, everything will be blocked off. Where here, I'm being stopped by traffic lights, by whatever. So there's a lot of stop and go. And the biggest butt kicker last week and this week is the last or the first or the 10 miles away from the house. As I leave the house and go into my route, the street's called Homestead. Homestead is a busy street. And when you look at it, it doesn't look as if it's elevated or if it's ascending or descending, right? It just looks straight. But when I go away from home, like I'm flying, it's like 23, 24 miles an hour. I'm like, yeah, like my confidence, like, yeah, I got my legs are feeling good, but not realizing I'm going slightly downhill. Now, when I come home, which is the last 10 miles, kicks my ass. Oh man, why? Because depending on the lights, if I get hit with lights, the stop and go is what just destroys or just depletes the energy of my legs. So although good for practice, it's something I'm not going to be experiencing during the race because there's not going to be that stop and go, energy. So that's what kills me. And because it's the last 10 miles, it's deceiving because it doesn't look as if it ascends the street, but it's definitely ascending slowly. So, when I'm riding to the last 10 miles, I'm usually averaging, 17, 18, 19, up to 20 miles an hour. And then all of a sudden, boom, it drops to 14. You're like, man, what is going on? I just feel like my legs just done because that ascension, you don't see it. It just hits you. So that is what has been kind of slowing me down the last 10 miles. But again, good practice for the legs. But those are certain things that I'm not going to be experiencing during the race, again, because everything's blocked off. So that is the butt kicker, and that's what kills me. And that's actually what slows my average down the last 10 miles. So anyway, that is my experience from the 100-miler yesterday. I had a good time. Again, the training's paying off. I'm not fatigued and tired. Now, don't get me wrong. Like when I'm, getting up, there's a little bit of a getting used to it. But, having to run right after, my legs are doing fine as long as I'm not level changing. If I'm up and I can run, my knees are good or my legs are good, but getting up and down, because we have couches or we have cushions on the floor. We don't have couches. Okay, here we go. So in our house, we have cushions on the floor, like you would see something like in the Middle East or something, somewhere in the Eastern Hemisphere. And here in the Western Hemisphere, you have, again, couches, right? Everyone has couches, very popular. But being a trainer and having a trainer's mind, I know that one of the biggest things is as we get older, we start to lose the strength of your legs. I witnessed it firsthand when I would train older people, right? Older as in as young as 50, 60, 70. And seeing how people get up and off the ground. Like for whatever reason, the further, as we get older, the further as we get away from the ground, as we get taller, as we get older, we start to shy away from the ground for whatever reason. So to watch people get up and off the floor, watching people moving on the floor, it's sad, right? Because you're losing that strength. So when you sit down at a 90, your leg strength is strong from 90 and above. But getting down 90 and below, when I say 90, I'm talking about the leg angle, right? As if I'm sitting on a chair. If I'm sitting on a toilet, that's about a 90-degree angle. In the Western Hemisphere, our Western strength of our legs is usually 90 and above. In the Eastern Hemisphere, they use their toilets on the ground. Some places their couches are on the ground. So there's a lot of level change, strength of 90 and below. It's actually one of the reasons why in the Western Hemisphere, a lot of our athletes experience a lot of hip, knee, and ankle injuries because we just don't have the flexibility nor the strength of that 90 and below. In the Eastern Hemisphere, there's less orthopedic injuries because of the flexibility and the strength of the 90 and below. So in our house, I'm a trainer. I'd like to implement lifestyle challenges. So our couches are on the ground. So there's a lot of up and down squatting and lunging. So yesterday when I came in, as soon as I went to go sit down on the couch or have a seat on the floor, that level change, my legs are fatigued and tired. But anything 90 and above, my knees are fine. So when it comes to running, I just need to stay above the 90, I'm good. So my legs are good, my legs are strong, everything's all good as long as I stay upright. All right, I've rambled enough. That is my feedback and my experience of the 100 miles that I rode yesterday. We will see you on the next video. All right, so you just saw a time lapse of me cleaning my bike, and this is what I'm doing. So this is the Cyclone. I actually put the chain through here across, and there's some solution that I put up to this dotted line, and I put it on the chain and I roll it backwards, and the chain goes through all these little cleaning devices and the liquid, and my chain becomes nice and clean. And after the cleaning of the chain, I go all around the bike with a Simple Green soaked cloth just to make sure it's nice and clean, no mud, make sure that the bike stays nice and fresh. And at the end of it all, we then use the lube on the chain so that the bike and the chain obviously lasts longer, keeping it nice and clean. All right, so let's break down what I have on my bike. So first things first, I do have a computer on my bike, which then tells me my distance tells me all the information that I need to know regarding my ride. Distance, time, speed, all that good stuff. And then in here, in this bag, I'm gonna have my goos and my food all in here. And I also have this. Now, this is a electronic pump. All I need to do is, if I have a flat, I pump once I change the flat, I pump the tire up, indicate that it's a tire, so I'll have, a preset max pressure, and the pump pumps up to the correct pump or the correct pressure, and I'm not sitting there pumping all day and seeing if I can hopefully get the right amount of air in my tire if for the unfortunate thing happens where I do get a flat. In this pouch, I have all of my gear in case of a flat. In other words, I have my tubes in there, I have all the tools in there, everything fits in that little bag except for that fancy pump that Jeff gave me as a gift. So thank you very much, Jeff. And I'm kind of glad that he gave it to me, because then it forced me to think where I was going to place it. And then once I thought about this, I'm like, hey, this is where I can put my food. This is where I can have all my supplies on that long bike ride. So I'm really, really glad that I received that pump, so that way it forced me to think outside the box. And then I have my water, right? Got my water and carrying case 1 and 2. So I have 2 bottles that I can carry. That is 25 ounces each. So that is the breakdown of my tri-bike. Everything that I have in that little pouch, all the necessities, and it's a very light bike. So I just gotta make sure that I utilize the lightness of the bike and go as fast as I can. All right, over here, in case you weren't here in my other videos, these are the tri-bars, okay? So the road bike, usually, they only put their hands here on the handlebars, and the tri, to get into the aero position, here's the tri bars. And the big difference between a road bike and a TT bike, which is a time trial bike, is the tri bike, because we're in the aero position for aerodynamics, it's angled where the weight is in the front versus the back. Now when you have the cycling or cyclists or the road bikes, their weight is back here. So big difference between the tri bike or TT bike and the road bike. So that's a little difference between the two. All right, that is the breakdown of my equipment on my bike. All right, another great thing that I was able to get fixed. I didn't figure it out myself. When I went to the bicycle outfitter, every time I go there, they always answer all my questions. They really, really take care of me. So, well, they take care of everyone, but they're amazing. So one of the things that the guy had figured out is that on my shoe, what was happening is I was feeling a lot of pressure on the outside, okay? Right about here on my toe. And he was saying that not most likely, what was happening is I was probably pushing off of my foot, pedaling this way. And since my foot was angled, all the pressure was here. So what he decided to do was to put in my shoes these wedges. So I insert this in my shoe and it wedges. You can see it kind of, that when it goes in, it'll push my foot up. So all I gotta do is just put it in, goes under my sole, put the sole on top of it, and now when I start pedaling, my foot feels comfortable. Now the shoe feels as if I now feel what the quality of the shoe is supposed to feel like. It feels very comfortable. I'm very shocked in how just a small little wedge fixed everything. So although all I did was go around the block, I did feel the difference. This weekend, I do have a 90-mile ride, and I'll definitely be putting these wedges to the test on that 90-mile ride, and we'll see the difference. So this week when I did the 100-mile ride, I was able to consciously push my toe in, and this angle will be this, push my big toe down without the wedge. Now with the wedge, I'll be able to subconsciously pedal correctly because of the wedge. So I'm very excited to see or feel the difference. All right, so another thing that I wanted to cover was the types of food or goos that I'm gonna be consuming. Now, we've all seen the goos. I am a huge fan of the Cliff, what flavor is this? Raz. Oh, I love citrusy and berry type stuff. So I'm a huge fan of these. So with these are 100 calories each. And not only are they 100 calories each, they provide 25 grams of carbohydrates. Now for the bike portion, I'm gonna need at least 90 grams of carbohydrates an hour. So which means I can either consume 3 to 4 of these, or I can bunch them together with other food items. So the other food item I purchased are these blocks, right? They're small little cubes of kind of like gummy bears, right? So 3 pieces are 100 calories. And the breakdown of carbohydrates provided total carbohydrates are 24 grams. The 3 of these little 3 little gummy bears are the equivalent of 1 goo. So I can consume 3 blocks and 2 goos worth, and that will be the proper needs for carbohydrates during the bike. So I really need to keep ahead of my nutrition and my hydration. Hydration, I'm gonna be needing close to 25 ounces of water per hour. So that's gonna be constant. So I'm not worried about that. But the food, I'm definitely gonna be worried about because, when I'm out there on the bike, I don't feel hungry. And by the time I do feel hungry, it's like overboard. It's like, oh man, I need to eat something quick. So I feel like I need to get better at budgeting the amount of energy consumed. And the reason it's difficult is because every time I have these long rides that I need to do, I'm eating a big meal before. I just I need to get ready for this. So I'll have like a big spaghetti bowl. And that's the reason why I'm not hungry. But I'm not gonna be having spaghetti bowls after my swim. So one of these bike rides, I need to go at least semi-hungry so that I can consume these goos. And also, I purchased these goo containers so I can fit, remember we had talked about this earlier, I can fit up to 7 in here. So the goos in this container, I might get 1 or 2 more, will be sufficient for the bike. So that should be good. And I'll have carried another one of these for the run. So it's just gonna be much easier. To me, it's gonna be easier during the run because I can just run and consume, where the bike is a little difficult because I'm riding and having to consume and not fall off and all that good stuff. So those are all the things that there you go, Dozer, that I am working on and preparing for this race. So it's not just the physical, it's the nutrition portion as well. I gotta stay ahead, or once I fall behind, then no good. So I can't crash, not literally, or I don't want to crash either way, energy-wise or bike way either. So just wanted to give you a little insight on how I'm going to be breaking these goos and gummy bears or blocks for my energy. So see you soon. All right, welcome back. So this is the grading portion of my week. I also have some interesting information at the end. Not interesting information, it's just my feelings that I'm currently feeling right now. So that will be after the grading. The grading. Last week, swimming. Did my twice a week. I did great on the swimming, except for one problem, which I will explain a little bit later. So I have to give myself a B. Did all the work, did everything, except for one little thing that I need to talk about. So a B for the swimming. Now for cycling. Cycling, I must say, cycling at the moment is the biggest challenge because I'm doing the most amount of miles on the cycling. So at the moment, it's kind of like my favorite. I'm having a lot of fun doing the cycling, although the 100 miles is grueling in a sense of just being out there all day. But I think just the challenge of pushing through it, it's for whatever reason exciting to me. I don't know why. Maybe that constant push is the whole reason why I'm doing this in the first place. So I'm definitely enjoying the biking. I did my 100 miles last week in 6 hours and 10 minutes. I already showed the breakdown, but I'll show it again. It'll be right here. And I think I'm doing wonderful with the cycling. So I'm definitely giving myself an A for the cycling. Now for the running. The running, I have to give myself a B. Now, the same thing that's affecting me on the swim is affecting me on the run, which I'll explain in a second. So I can't give myself an A if this little thing is bothering me. So that's the reason for the B. Now, I'm getting all my miles. I'm getting all of my time in the run, minus the Sundays because I've taken Sundays off. So I'm doing all the work. So that's not the issue. So I'll give myself a B for running. Now let's talk about the issue. Now, I am currently about 5 weeks away. We're in September, we're mid-September, and not mid, but approaching mid-September, and I'm really, really close to the race. Now, I am pumped, I'm excited, and more importantly, I am ready. I've talked about this last week. Mentally, physically, spiritually, I'm in, right? The problem is, since this was my first race, I really didn't know what to expect. So I would rather be over-prepared than under-prepared. So I did, on this 24-week program, 24 weeks out, again, we're about 5 weeks away, and I'm really, really hitting senioritis, or the laziness right before the race. Let's say if the race was last Saturday, I would have been ready to go, right? When I did the 100, I was ready to go. I would have been ready to go. That's actually, last week was Ironman Santa Cruz. I didn't realize Santa Cruz had an Ironman. Didn't realize it was on Saturday. I would have loved to, get the feel and kind of check everything out. But anyways, that's not the point I'm making. The point I'm making is I'm getting a little lazy, right? Although I'm hitting all my running, I've been running on the treadmill more than I've been running outside, for example. And not for any other reason other than I'm slightly getting lazy. And on the swimming, right? I'm doing my swim, but in my mind, I'm fighting more of, I want to be done, as opposed to, let me get better, let me get this, and let me fix this, let me fix. I'm still doing that, but the conversations in my head are now changing. So I am definitely fighting that urge of just easing off, right? And I gotta, at least for these next 2 weeks, really push it hard so that I can ease into the race, but I'm definitely feeling this senioritis. And a question that someone asked me just about an hour ago, one of my trainer's clients asked, if you were gonna do this again, would you start as early as you started? And I answered, definitely not. I started this early because I didn't know what to expect. I started this early because I'd rather be over-prepared than under-prepared. But now that I'm here, I'm definitely easing off the pedal faster than I should. And it's just, my mind is just, again, I'm ready. I feel like I'm ready. So it's just, my brain is saying, okay, well, I'm ready, let's do it. Why are we continuing to train more when you're ready, right? Again, these are all the conversations in my head. So I'm losing a little bit of that battle in my head with the intensity because of this feeling. So in the future, I'm definitely not going to be preparing as long because now I know what to expect. I know this feeling, I need to avoid this feeling. So at the moment, I'm definitely struggling on fighting to maintain all the stuff that I worked hard for and not losing any of it. But here's the funny thing. I'm not losing the motivation of the cycling, because the cycling every single week has been increasing to that century mark, right? So like that's been like on my mind, oh, the challenge, right? In the beginning, it was the swimming, learning how to swim. And then now, not that I'm a professional or I'm any good at it, but my mind is like, okay, I'm now in that, I won't say maintenance phase, but time. I need to just put in the time. So I'm putting in the time, but I've been putting in the time for the whole year. So I'm getting fatigued mentally. The running, I hated it from the beginning. Now I really, really enjoyed it. I was doing really, really good at my running. But then again, I'm in that, I just need the time, right? That's what I'm struggling with. And now with the bike, I'm challenging myself with the miles. And that to me has been the main focus. But there's 3 disciplines, not 1 discipline. So that is all what's going on in my head. And I'm fighting it. But I can't use that as an excuse. That's what I'm fighting. I'm not saying that's what's beating me, but it's definitely something that I'm fighting with. So I wanted to share my vulnerabilities, right? This is the vulnerability right now in this training program, is feeling either confident or overconfident. So I have to fight through that and say, hey, I still don't know what I'm expecting to experience. And who's to say that you are ready? How do you know that you're ready? Have you done all 3 events all together? I haven't. Definitely am being challenged, and I got to get back on the saddle and finish off strong. So I'll see you guys next week.